Instead of a synchronous session, I've decided that probably the best thing to do is just explain to you the community project that you have coming up called your analysis project. You have as an attachment to this presentation your analysis project guidelines, the community analysis guide, and then also you have the rubric for grading the analysis project. As part of initial state certification in many states now, students are required to complete an EdTPA. That's how they learn about their community, how they learn how they can help their community, and how they can help the students in their class. And that's one of the reasons we're doing it, period. The other reason is because the more you know about your community and the better you understand your community, the better you'll be able to minister to them and to the students in your classroom. This complete project has two parts. You'll complete one part next week, and then the following week you'll complete the second part. You'll turn them both in at the same time. You're not turning this part in, you're not turning them in separately, but one needs to be completed first in order for you to complete the second. You cannot do them both in the same week. The first one is a lot of work, and you need to be able to have time to think about it and analyze it and write it up. So pretend like the first one is due next week and the second one is due the next week, and that way you'll have them done when they should be done so you can do your best job. The more you know your students, the better teacher you'll be. You know that. Actually, knowing the community really does play a key role. Many of you know your community because you've lived there a long time, but some of you really don't. This gives you a chance to get to know it. Even though for those of you that have lived in community a long time, I think you'll learn some things about it that you've really not known before. The community analysis guide is used to collect the information on the project, and I've attached that to this presentation. So you may either download the community analysis guide and write right on it, or you may gather the information any way you want to, but it has to be in these sections so that I don't have to hunt for it. If you decide to use a different way to present it, make sure you put general description of the community for the first part, and then community residents, population change, households, age distribution. I need each indicator to be listed so that I can follow it. You don't want me to think you didn't do part of it. Notice on the community analysis guide that I gave you, it tells you where to go for information, and if you live in Guam, where to go for information. I've had students from 4 or 5 different countries around the world, and they've used the information from their specific country and from their specific community, and you're welcome to do that. It says on the community analysis guide that it gives you a description of what you're looking for. Then it gives you some possible sources to go to find that information. So where it has listed possible sources, you're probably going to go in and change the source so that it's there. Like if you use, like I live in Seffner, so if I use SeffnerCommunityDatabase.com, then I'd list that for my source, and I'd list the data that I get from it. So make sure you have your sources with your data, because you're going to need to use in-text citations to verify the information that you have. So the first part is just a general description, and it helps me to understand a little more about your community, and maybe it'll help you understand a little more about your community. Where it says major changes to the community in the last 10 years, this is very important because some of you will notice extreme changes that happen that maybe you didn't notice because you were there, and they just happen gradually over time. When you move to community residents, this tells you a lot about what's going on in your community, and especially as far as diverse populations go. So you'll present your data in short bulleted phrases, and you can have more detailed personal notes if you want them to assist with part 2, which is a written paper. So you'll give the current population and population changes. People have asked me, do I need to list the percentage for every population? Well, I think that's up to you, how you want to divide that out. You want it to be useful information. Then households, this is very important. You're looking for family and non-family households. Age distribution, however you want to divide that up is fine. Ethnic diversity, I would list that. And school enrollment, that's the number and percentage of students enrolled in school. That's very telling. In my specific community, we discovered that a whole lot of students just don't finish high school, which I probably already knew, but I hadn't thought about a whole lot. Educational attainment tells you a lot about your community, and then languages spoken at home come in very handy as far as understanding the diversity. Your economic stability is very important, as we've talked about. Families that are below poverty level have a very hard time, so fill out that part. Then the last part is quality of life, and this goes into the amenities that are available to your community. If you have foreign-born population, this is for Guam only. And I've had some people from foreign countries fill that in too. And then housing that's available. I thought I put on here, let's see, I think I may have missed it. Yes, I added in here a section on community services that are available. This doesn't mean parks or buses. This means like, is there a food bank? Is there an open clinic? What type of community? If you have a family that's really in need, where can you refer your family to get what they need? If you have a student who needs special services, where do you refer them to get those special services if they don't have the money to go to someone who's a specialist in that? Some people use their city to look at this up. Some of you may be in more rural areas. You may want to use your zip code. Whatever you consider your community. I've had people who live in one community and minister in another. Well, if you don't minister in your community at all, then do the community within which you minister. I've had some people who said they had two communities that came together and they minister in both. So they put the data down for both. It's whatever you consider your community to be. If you have any questions, please email me and ask me. The second part of this analysis project is the implementation, which is your written analysis. This should be written in APA form. The data collection is one submission, file submission. The implementation, the written paper, is a separate submission. So you'll have two submissions for this particular assignment. So in this one, you are going to reflect on the information that you gathered in your analysis and write a 4 to 6 page paper that analyzes the data and reflects on the impact this knowledge should have on relationships and instruction. So how is what you learned going to help you to be a better teacher and help you to minister better to the families in your church and in your classroom and to the students in your classroom? What is going to happen, or what are you going to be able to do that is different because of what you have learned? The way this is to be written up is you'll have an introduction, then you'll give a community profile. You'll just synthesize the information that's been given and presented in a narrative form. Your goal is to paint a picture of the community and the diverse groups that live in it. I've had people who lived in communities that were not diverse, of several different nationalities that just were not diverse. And so they wrote up their community the way that it was. Even if they're not diverse as far as people groups go, they're probably going to be diverse as far as economically goes, or the type of household. Maybe one parent household, maybe grandparents, maybe step families, unmarried. So whenever you think about diversity, don't just think about the color of skin or racial, ethnic differences. Think about all the different differences that make up diversity. Then analyze the data you collected and how will this help you with your interaction with your students, parents, and other professionals in your community. So what you're going to do is apply what you've already learned from knowing and serving diverse families and reading Lane and Tripp's book, and you're going to apply that to what you learned about your community. And you're going to use that as well as any other professional resources you want to and support it within text citations to show how you will do that. Do not turn this analysis in without applying it. It's one thing to have knowledge, but knowledge is no good without application. Then your conclusion, and then have a reference sheet, and be sure to use APA. I think I have attached also an APA template that you can use. Okay, again, if you have any questions, please ask me. And this will be due during week